Good
Jai
evening, Jai
Guruji.
Guruji, Jai Guruji, good evening. Without
Good
further
evening.
ado, we're going to get right into it. Chapter 18, A Mohammedan Wonder Worker. Years ago, I just put the volume up, sorry. Years ago, right in this very room you now occupy, a Mohammedan wonder worker performed 4 miracles before me. Sri Yukteswar made this surprising statement during his first visit to my quarters. Immediately after entering Serampore College, I had taken a room in a nearby boarding house called Panthi. It was an old-fashioned brick mansion fronting the Ganges. Master, what a coincidence. Are these newly decorated walls really ancient with memories? I looked around my simply furnished room with awakened interest. It is a long story, my guru smiled reminiscently. The name of the fakir was Abul Khan. He had acquired his extraordinary powers through a chance encounter with a Hindu yogi. Son, I am thirsty. Fetch me some water. A dust-covered sannyasi made this request of Afzal one day during his early boyhood in a small village of East Bengal. Master, I am a Mohammedan. How could you, a Hindu, accept a drink from my hands? Your truthfulness pleases me, my child. I do not observe the ostracizing rules of ungodly sectarianism. Go, bring me water quickly. Afzal's reverent obedience was rewarded by a loving glance from the yogi. You possess good karma from former lives, he observed solemnly. I am going to teach you a certain yoga method which will give you command over one of the invisible realms. The great powers that will be yours should be exercised for worthy ends. Never employ them selfishly. I perceive, alas, that you have brought over from the past some seeds of destructive tendencies. Do not allow them to sprout by watering them with fresh evil actions. The complexity of your previous karma is such that you must use this life to reconcile your yogic accomplishments with the highest humanitarian goals. So each one of us has brought from our past seeds of destructive tendencies, all of us. It could be depression, anger, self-resentment, could be anything. And we tend to water them in this life until we met Guruji, and he awakened us to the fact that we can change our karma in this lifetime from being self-destructive to being self-constructive and making a positive impact on our lives as well as other people's lives. Just to pause a little bit to give reverence, absolute reverence to Lata Mangeshkar ji, who passed away today. I feel a woman of 92, she's led a life of 7.5 decades of amazing work she did in her music industry. And she was really the soul of India, the voice of India. And I feel she's an inspiration to all women, that if she can do it, we can do it. In a time, in fact, when women weren't even respected, today we have so many opportunities as women, and the world has opened up for us. So we can really change our karmas. I mean, I come from a family who believed that a woman, from my great-grandmother to my grandmother to my mother, they were all domesticated, and their home was in their place was in the home, so to speak. But today, it's with Guruji's meher, his grace, women are exploring different avenues. So I was just digressing because I've been watching the news all day. So after instructing the amazed boy in a complicated technique, the master vanished. Afzal faithfully followed his yoga exercise for 20 years. His miraculous feats began to attract widespread attention. It seems that he was always accompanied by a disembodied spirit whom he called Hazrat. This invisible entity was able to fulfill the fakir's slightest wish. Ignoring his master's warning, Afzal began to misuse his powers. Whatever object he touched and then replaced would soon disappear without a trace. This disconcerting eventuality usually made the Mohammedan an objectionable guest. He visited large jewelry stores in Calcutta from time to time, representing himself as a possible purchaser. Any jewel he handled would vanish shortly after he had left the shop. Afzal was often surrounded by several hundred students, attracted by the hope of learning his secrets. The fakir occasionally invited them to travel with him. At the railway station, he would manage to touch a roll of tickets. These he would return to the clerk, remarking, "I have changed my mind and won't buy them now." But when he boarded the train with his retinue, Afzal would be in possession of the required tickets. These exploits created an indignant uproar. Bengali jewelers and ticket sellers were succumbing to nervous breakdowns. The police who sought to arrest Afzal found themselves helpless. The fakir could remove incriminating evidence merely by saying, "Hazrat, take this away." Sri Yukteswara rose from his seat and walked to the balcony of my room, which overlooked the Ganges. I followed him, eager to hear more of the baffling Mohammedan pratfalls. This Panti house formerly belonged to a friend of mine. He became acquainted with Afzal and asked him here. My friend also invited about 20 neighbors, including myself. I was only a youth then and felt a lively curiosity about the notorious fakir. Master laughed. I took the precaution of not wearing anything valuable. Afzal looked at me over inquisitively, then remarked, "You have powerful hands. Go downstairs to the garden, get a smooth stone and write your name on it with chalk. Then throw the stone as far as possible into the Ganges." I obeyed. As soon as the stone had vanished under distant waves, the Mohammedan addressed me again. Fill a pot with Ganges water near the front of this house." After I had returned with a vessel of water, the fakir cried, "Hazrat, put the stone in the pot." The stone appeared at once. I pulled it from the vessel and found my signature as legible as when I had written it. Babu. One of my friends in the room was wearing a heavy antique gold watch and chain. The fakir examined them with ominous admiration. Soon they were missing. "Afzal, please return my prized heirloom." Babu was nearly in tears. The Mohammedan was stoically silent for a while, then said, "You have 500 rupees in an iron safe. Bring them to me and I will tell you where to locate your timepiece." The distraught Babu left immediately for his home. He came back shortly and handed Afzal the required sum. "Go to the little bridge near your house," the fakir instructed Babu. "Call on Hazrat to give you the watch and chain." Babu rushed away. On his return, he was wearing a smile of relief and no jewelry whatever. When I commanded Hazrat as directed, he announced, "My watch came tumbling down from the air into my right hand. You may be sure I locked the heirloom in my safe before rejoining the group here." Babu's friends, witnessing of this comic tragedy of the ransom for a watch, were staring with resentment at Afzal. He now spoke placatingly. "Please name any drink you want. Hazrat will produce it." A number asked for milk, others for fruit juices. I was not too much shocked when the unnerved Babu requested whiskey. The Mohammedan gave an order. The obliging Hazrat sent sealed containers sailing down the air and thudding to the floor. Each man found his desired beverage. The promise of the fourth spectacular feat of the day was doubtless gratifying to our host. Afzal offered to supply an instantaneous lunch. "Let us order the most expensive dishes," Babu suggested. Gloomily, "I want an elaborate meal for my 500 rupees. Everything should be served on gold plates." As soon as each man had expressed his preferences, the fakir addressed himself to the inexhaustible Hazrat. A great rattle ensued. Gold platters filled with intricately prepared curries, hot luchis, and many out-of-season fruits landed from nowhere at our feet. All the food was delicious. After feasting for an hour, we started to leave the room. A tremendous noise, as though dishes were being piled up, caused us to return around. Lo, there was no sign of the glittering plates or the remnants of the meal. "Guruji," I interrupted, "if Afzal could easily secure such things as gold dishes, why did he covet the property of others?" The fakir was not highly developed spiritually, Sri Yukteswara explained. His mastery of a certain yoga technique gave him access to an astral plane where any desire is immediately materialized. Through the agency of an astral being, Hazrat, the Mohammedan could summon the atoms of any object from etheric energy by an act of powerful will. But such astrally produced objects are structurally evanescent. They cannot be long retained. Afzal still yearned for worldly wealth, which, though more hardly earned, has a more dependable durability. I laughed. It too sometimes vanishes most unaccountably. Afzal was not a man of God realization, Master went on. Miracles of a permanent and beneficial nature are performed by true saints because they have attuned themselves to the omnipotent Creator. Afzal was merely an ordinary man with an extraordinary power of penetrating a subtle realm not usually entered by mortals until death. I understand now, Guruji. The afterworld appears to have some charming features, Master agreed. I never saw Afzal after that day. But a few years later, Babu came to my house to show me a newspaper account of the Mohammedans' public confession. From it, I learned the facts I have just told you about Afzal's early initiation from a Hindu guru. The gist of the latter part of the published document, as recalled by Sri Yukteswar, was as follows. I, Abul Khan, am writing these words as an act of penance and as a warning to those who seek the possession of miraculous powers. For years, I've been misusing the wondrous abilities imparted to me through the grace of God and my master. I became drunk with egotism, feeling that I was beyond the ordinary laws of mortality. My day of reckoning finally arrived. Recently, I met an old man on a road outside Calcutta. He limped along painfully, carrying a shining object which looked like gold. I addressed him with greed in my heart. I am Afzal Khan, the great fakir. What have you there? This bowl of gold is my sole material wealth. It can be of no interest to a fakir. I implore you, sir, to heal my limp. I touched the bowl and walked away without reply. The old man hobbled after me. He soon raised an outcry. My gold is gone. As I paid no attention, he suddenly spoke to a stentorian voice that issued oddly from his frail body. Do you not recognize me? I stood speechless, aghast at the belated discovery that this unimpressive old cripple was none other than the great saint who long ago had initiated me into yoga. He straightened himself. His body instantly became strong and youthful. So, my guru's glance was fiery. I see with my own eyes that you use your powers not to help suffering humanity, but to prey on it like a common thief. I withdraw your occult gifts. Hazrat is now freed from you. No longer shall you be in a terror in Bengal. I called on Hazrat in anguished tones. For the first time, he did not appear to my inner sight, but some dark veil suddenly lifted within me. I saw clearly the blasphemy of my life. My Guru, I thank you for coming to banish my long delusion. I was sobbing at his feet. I promise to forsake my worldly ambitions. I will retire to the mountains for lonely meditation on God, hoping to atone for my evil past. My master regarded me with silent compassion. I feel your sincerity, he said finally. Because of your earlier years of strict obedience and because of your present repentance, I will grant you one boon. Your other powers are now gone, but whenever food and clothing are needed, you may still call successfully on Hazrat to supply them. Devote yourself wholeheartedly to divine understanding in the mountain solitudes. My Guru then vanished. I was left to my tears and reflections. Farewell, world. I go to seek the forgiveness of the cosmic beloved. So we must never use our power, authority, even people in higher positions of, presidency, ministers. It's a given. God has given that position, but we must use it for the greater good of humanity. That is why Guruji also, when he used to bless those in the so-called, inner circle, he used to say, I ministered, or not to take names, but, and people used to say, Guruji, आप ये तो बहुत करप्ट है, so and so. तो गुरुजी कहते हैं इन्हां नू सुधार दांगा तो सोसाइटी तो अपने आप सुधर जाएगी ना. So when we use our power and our position for a better cause, for humanity, for society, then of course we are doing God's work. But if we use our powers and our positions and our status for just our self gains, and we selfishly literally rob people of it doesn't have to be materialism, could be their dignity, could be anything, then we are committing a very big crime. Guruji gives us everything, I believe, so that we don't have to worry about our material kind of position in society. If, say, I am wealthy today because Guruji has given me that wealth, so that I don't have to worry about, where my food is going to come from, where my next meal is going to come from. Therefore, I have a higher responsibility to do some good work for divinity, if that makes sense. So if you are wealthy and you are materially comfortable, it means God is kind, God is looking after you and your needs. So you have something greater to do on this planet Earth. I hope that makes sense, because I realized this many years ago when I became single again, and I said, oh, I am financially secure, I have everything that I need. What is my purpose? What is the meaning of my life? And then Guruji revealed it to me. So I think, we must take responsibility for our lives, for a greater cause. And again, I bring Lata Mangeshkar into it. She's made an impact on all women across the world. And I think God bless her soul, because this is what we all aspire to, that, कहते हैं ना वो कौन था भजन, औकात विच रखी पर जदों मैं जावा एक आंखों में नम होए, what I don't remember the exact words, but it's a beautiful bhajan. Guru ji ka shabad chalta hai. So without further ado, chapter 19, my master, just being mindful of the watch, my master in Calcutta appears in Serampore. Very interesting. I am often beset by atheist doubts, yet a torturing surmise sometimes haunts me. May not untapped soul possibilities exist? Is man not missing his real destiny if he fails to explore them? These remarks of Vijan Babu, my roommate at the Bandi boarding house, were called forth by my invitation that he meet my guru. Sri Yukteswara Ji will initiate you into Kriya Yoga, I replied. It calms a dualistic turmoil by a divine inner certainty. That evening, Vijan accompanied me to the hermitage. In Master's presence, my friend received such spiritual peace that he was soon a constant visitor. The trivial preoccupations of daily life are not enough for man. Wisdom, too, is a native hunger. In Sri Yukteswara's words, Vijan found an incentive to those attempts, first painful, then effortlessly liberating, to locate a realer self within his bosom than the humiliating ego of a temporary birth, seldom ample enough for the spirit. As Vijan and I were both pursuing the AB course at Serampore College, we got into the habit of walking together to the ashram as soon as classes were over. We would often see Sri Yukteswara standing on his second floor balcony, welcoming our approach with a smile. One afternoon, Kanai, a young hermitage resident, met Vijan and me at the door with disappointing news. Master is not here. He was summoned to Calcutta by an urgent note. The following day, I received a postcard from my guru. I shall leave Calcutta Wednesday morning, he had written. You and Vijan meet the 9 o'clock train at Serampore station. About 8:30 on Wednesday morning, a telepathic message from Sri Yukteswara flashed insistently to my mind. I am delayed. Don't meet the 9 o'clock train. I conveyed the latest instructions to Vijan, who was already pressed for departure. You and your intuition. My friend's voice was edged in scorn. I prefer to trust Master's written word. I shrugged my shoulders and seated myself with quiet finality. Muttering angrily, Vijan made for the door and closed it noisily behind him. As the room was rather dark, I moved nearer to the window overlooking the street. The scant sunlight suddenly increased to an intense brilliancy in which the iron-barred window completely vanished. Against this dazzling background appeared the clearly materialized figure of Sri Yukteswara. Bewildered to the point of shock, I rose from my chair and knelt before him. With my customary gesture of respectful greeting at my Guru's feet, I touched his shoes. These were a pair familiar to me, of orange-dyed canvas, soled with rope. His ochre swami cloth brushed against me. I distinctly felt not only the texture of his robe, but also the gritty surface of the shoes and the pressure of his toes within them. Too much astounded to utter a word, I stood up and gazed at him questioningly. I was pleased that you got my telepathic message. Master's voice was calm, entirely normal. I have now finished my business in Calcutta and shall arrive in Serampore by the 10 o'clock train. As I still stared mutely, Sri Yukteswara went on. This is not an apparition, but my flesh and blood form. I have been divinely commanded to give you this experience, rare to achieve on earth. Meet me at the station. You and Dijan will see me coming toward you, dressed as I am now. I shall be preceded by a fellow passenger, a little boy carrying a silver jug. My Guru placed both hands on my head with a murmured blessing as he concluded with the words, Tabe Asi. I heard a peculiar rumbling sound. His body began to melt gradually within the pacing light. First his feet and legs vanished, then his torso and head, like a scroll being rolled up. To the very last, I could feel his fingers resting lightly on my hair. The effulgence faded. Nothing remained before me but the barred window and a pale stream of sunlight. I remained in a half stupor of confusion, questioning whether I had been the victim of hallucination. A crestfallen Dijan soon entered the room. Master was not on the 9 o'clock train, nor even the 9:30. My friend made his announcement with a slightly apologetic air. Come then, I know he will arrive at 10 o'clock. I took Dijan's hand and rushed him forcibly along with me, heedless of his protests. In about 10 minutes, we entered the station where the train was already puffing to a halt. The whole train is filled with the light of Master's aura. Here is there, I exclaimed joyfully. He's there, I exclaimed joyfully. You dream so? Dijan laughed mockingly. Let us wait here. I told my friend details of the way in which our Guru would approach us. As I finished my description, Sri Yukteswara came into view, wearing the same clothes I had seen a short time earlier. He walked slowly in the wake of a small lad bearing a silver jug. For a moment, a wave of cold fear passed through me at the unprecedented strangeness of my experience. I felt the materialistic 20th century world slipping from me. Was I back in the ancient days when Jesus appeared before Peter on the sea? As Sri Yukteswara, a modern yogi Christ, reached the spot where Dijan and I were speechlessly rooted, Master smiled at my friend and remarked, I sent you a message too, but you were unable to grasp it. Here I'm going to just pause a minute. So Guruji also sends us messages all the time. He speaks to us, but our mind has to be calm, receptive, and it has to believe that Guruji is speaking to us. Therefore, it's very important for all of us, for each one of us, including myself, to work towards our calmness, to work towards being centered and having that complete equanimity to be able to hear his message to us. So I sent you a message, but you were not enabled to grasp it. So that receptivity is absolutely imperative for us to be able to hear him. And we can hear him in silence, in meditation. Dijan was silent, but glared at me suspiciously. After we had escorted our Guru to his hermitage, my friend and I proceeded towards Serampore College. Dijan halted in the street, indignation streaming from his every pore. So, Master sent me a message. Yet you concealed it. I demand an explanation. Can I help it if your mental mirror oscillates with such restlessness that you cannot register Guru's instructions? I retorted. So it is the restlessness of our minds and our anxieties that we're not able to hold still, because it is in stillness that we will see the light of divinity. And it is in stillness that we will hear his voice. So he was restless, and hence he could not pick up the signal of his Guruji's vibration. The anger vanished from Bijan's face. I see what you mean, he said ruefully. But please explain how you could know about the child with the jug. By the time I had finished the story of Master's phenomenal appearance at the boarding house that morning, my friend and I reached Serampur College. The account I have just heard of our Guru's powers, Bijan said, makes me feel that my university in the world is only a kindergarten. So true. So our schooling actually begins in real life. When we finish schooling and we are in the school of life, that is when our real education begins. Because we learn so many things through the proverbial highs and lows of life. That is our true learning. School gives us academic learning, but life, in the school of life, we are filled with practical learning. And after meeting Guruji, our spiritual learning begins. But we must imbibe as much knowledge and wisdom from Guruji as we can, because that is what's going to, like, he said, mere ko loki bade aande ne, but naam nahi koi mangda. Asli cheez, naam mang loge, to naam ke saath kahin kuch wo daan kar dete hain. Wisdom, knowledge, how to live and how to help others. Because we are not isolated beings. We are part of a larger family, soul family. So we must be there for each other. We must have a higher purpose than just walking through the wilderness of life. We must, each one of us, have a higher goal and work towards that goal in a focused manner. Now I need your permission to read 2 more pages in chapter 20. It's a very short chapter. So please let me know if you're still focused and you're all tuned in. I'm ready to read chapter 20.
Yes, Auntie. It's beautiful. The way it's going. I mean, so much of learning to keep your mind calm and to learn how life should be led. Beautiful, beautiful. Please carry on.
Thank you. We do not visit Kashmir, chapter 20. Father, I want to invite Master and 4 friends to accompany me to the Himalayan foothills during my summer vacation. May I have 6 train passes to Kashmir and enough money to cover our travel expenses? As I had expected, Father laughed heartily. This is the 3rd time you have given me the same cock and bull story. Didn't you make a similar request last summer and the year before that? At that moment, Sri Yukteswara refuses to go. It is true, Father. I don't know why my Guru will not give me his definite word about Kashmir. But if I tell him that I have already secured the passes from you, somehow I think that this time he will consent to make the journey. Father was unconvinced, of course, at the moment. But the following day, after some good-humored gibes, he handed me 6 passes and a roll of 10 rupee bills. I hardly think your theoretical trip needs such practical props, he remarked. But here you are, here they are. After that afternoon, I exhibited my booty to Sri Yukteswara. Though he smiled at my enthusiasm, his words were non-committal. I would like to go, we shall see. He made no comment when I asked his little hermitage disciple Kanai to accompany us. I have invited 3 other friends, Rajendranath, Mitra, Jyotinodi, and the other boy. Our date of departure was set for the following Monday. On Saturday and Sunday, I stayed in Calcutta, where marriage rites for a cousin were being celebrated at my family home. I arrived in Serampur with my luggage early Monday morning. Rajinder met me at the hermitage door. Master is out, walking. He has refused to go. I was equally grieved and obdurate. I will not give Father a 3rd chance to ridicule my chimerical plans for Kashmir. Come, the rest of us will go anyhow. Rajinder agreed. I left the ashram to find a servant, Kanai. I knew would not take the trip without Master, and someone was needed to look after the luggage. I bethought myself of Bihari, previously a servant in my family home, who was now employed by a Serampur schoolmaster. As I walked along briskly, I met my Guru in front of the Christian church near Serampur courthouse. Where are you going? Sri Yukteswara's face was unsmiling. Sir, I hear that you and Kanai will not take the trip we have been planning. I am seeking Bihari. You will recall that last year he was so anxious to see Kashmir that he even offered to serve without pay. I remember. Nevertheless, I don't think Bihari will be willing to go. I was exasperated. He's just eagerly waiting for this opportunity. My guru silently resumed his walk. I soon reached the schoolmaster's house. Bihari, in the courtyard, greeted me with a friendly warmth that abruptly vanished as soon as I mentioned Kashmir. With a murmured word of apology, the servant left me and entered his employee's house. I waited half an hour, nervously assuring myself that Bihari's delay was being caused by preparations for his trip. Finally, I knocked at the front door. Bihari left by the back stairs about 30 minutes ago, a man informed me. A slight smile hovered about his lips. I departed sadly, wondering whether my invitation had been too coercive or whether Master's unseen influence were at work. Passing the Christian church, again I saw my guru walking slowly toward me. Without waiting to hear my report, he exclaimed, "So Bihari would not go. Now what are your plans?" I felt like a recalcitrant child who is determined to defy his masterful father. "Sir, I'm going to ask my uncle to lend me a servant, Lal Dari." "See your uncle if you want to," Shri Yukteswar replied with a chuckle, "but I hardly think he will enjoy the visit." Apprehensive but rebellious, I left my guru and entered Sarampur courthouse. My paternal uncle, Sarada Ghosh, a government attorney, welcomed me affectionately. "I am leaving today with some friends for Kashmir," I told him. "For years, I have been looking forward to this Himalayan trip." "I'm happy for you, Mukunda. Is there anything I can do to make your journey more comfortable?" These kind words gave me a lift of encouragement. "Dear uncle," I said, "could you possibly spare me your servant, Lal Dari?" My simple request had the effect of an earthquake. Uncle jumped so violently that his chair overturned. The papers on the desk flew in every direction, and his pipe, a long coconut-stemmed hubble bubble, fell to the floor with a great clatter. "You selfish young man," he shouted, quivering with wrath. "What a preposterous idea! Who will look after me if you take my servant on one of your pleasure jaunts?" I concealed my surprise, reflecting that my amiable uncle's sudden change of front was only one more enigma in a day fully devoted to incomprehensibility. My retreat from the courthouse office was more alacritous than dignified. I returned to the hermitage, where my friends were expectantly gathered. Conviction was growing on me that some sufficient, if exceedingly recondite motive was behind Master's attitude. Remorse seized me that I had been trying to thwart my guru's will. "Mukunda, wouldn't you like to stay a while longer with me?" Sri Yukteswar inquired. "Rajinder and the others can go ahead now and wait for you in Calcutta. There will be plenty of time to catch the last evening train leaving Calcutta for Kashmir." "Sir, I don't care to go without you," I said mournfully. My friends paid not the slightest attention to my remark. They summoned a hackney carriage and departed with all the luggage. Kanai and I sat quietly at our guru's feet. After a half hour of complete silence, Master rose and walked toward the second floor dining patio. "Kanai, please serve Mukunda's food. His train leaves soon." Getting up from my blanket seat, I staggered suddenly with nausea and a ghastly churning sensation in my stomach. The stabbing pain was so intense that I felt I had been abruptly hurled into some violent hell. Groping blindly toward my guru, I collapsed before him, attacked by all symptoms of the dread Asiatic cholera. He knew. Sri Yukteswara and Kanai carried me to the sitting room. Racked with agony, I cried, "Master, I surrender my life to you." For I believed it was indeed fast ebbing from the shores of my body. Sri Yukteswara put my head on his lap, stroking my forehead with angelic tenderness. "You see now what would have happened if you were at the station with your friends," he said. "I had to look after you in this strange way because you chose to doubt my judgment about taking the trip at this particular time." What springs to mind here, when Sangat came just before the tsunami, the first tsunami that happened, they said, "Guruji, humne plan kiya hua hai, sab book kiya hua hai, everything is settled for our Christmas holiday. And I remember Guruji said, "Baithe raho, langar khao." And then it was one thing after another. And the Sangat was so livid. They said, "We paid, and hotel bills, flight bills are pending. Everything is paid. So we have to leave. What is Guruji doing? How merciless is he?" And little did they know that Guruji saved their lives by not enabling them to take that trip. So when things don't work out, phir bhi shukrana karo. And when things do work out, uska to aur bhi shukrana karo. So shukrana has to be a constant emotion. It has to be a constant emotion that flows through our hearts, because we don't know. See, our mind, our brain interferes with the heart and the faith. But we know no better. Therefore, surrender kar jao. फिर देखो गुरुजी कैसे overtake करते हैं हमारी lives को. So it is so beautiful that people then start rejecting you. Rejections come left, right, and center, because Guruji is creating those obstacles of protection. So when things don't work out, we start fuming and stumbling and getting angry. We lose the plot, but it's for a higher reason. So we must understand. It teaches us to take yet another step towards spirituality. So it's another level of learning. Shri Yukteswara, I'm just going to repeat this line. Shri Yukteswara put my head on his lap, stroking my forehead with angelic tenderness. You see now what would have happened if you were at the station with your friends, he said. I had to look after you in this strange way, because you chose to doubt my judgment about taking the trip at this particular time. I understood at last. Inasmuch as great masters seldom see fit to display their powers openly, a casual observer of the day's events would have imagined that their sequence was quite natural. My guru's intervention had been too subtle to be suspected. He had worked his will through Bihari and my uncle Sarada and Rajendra and the others in such an inconspicuous manner that probably everyone but myself thought the situations had been logically normal. हम सोचते नहीं कि जब rejection आती है कि इंसान ही reject कर रहा, गुरुजी करवा रहे हैं वो rejection. So we must see God in everyone. We must see God's plan actually, and never resent any human being, because वो भी लोग जो हमें reject करते हैं, or they come in the way of our journey, are obstacles created by Guruji. As Sri Yukteswar never failed to observe his social obligations, he instructed Kanai to go for a specialist and to notify my uncle. Master, I protested, only you can heal me. I am too far gone for any doctor. Child, you are protected by the divine mercy. Don't worry about the doctor. He will not find you in this state. You are already healed. With my Guru's words, the excruciating suffering left me. I sat up feebly. A doctor soon arrived and examined me carefully. You appear to have passed through the worst, he said. I will take some specimens with me for laboratory tests. The following morning, the physician arrived hurriedly. I was sitting up in good spirits. Well, here you are, smiling and chatting as though you had no close call with death. He patted my head gently. I hardly expected to find you alive. After I had discovered from the specimens that your disease was Asiatic cholera, you're fortunate, young man, to have a guru with divine healing powers. I am convinced of it. Here I'm going to interject. I remember the first time, after many years, my doctor who used to cure me of my asthma met me socially. It was Dr. either Ashwini Chopra or Lok Chopra, one of the two. They met me socially. In fact, it was some wedding, and I turned up, and he looked at me from a distance, and he came towards me. He goes, "Tu Ali zinda hai?" And I looked at him. I said, "Yes." He said, "Impossible hai ye. Kisne tujhe theek kiya?" Because he used to treat me every year for my asthma, life-threatening asthma. He said, "Impossible hai. Jo tera hal tha, tere lungs ke state the." We thought she only has a few years to live. But of course, with Guruji's intervention, nothing is impossible. He grants lives. लेख लिखते थे 97 में एस्ट्रोलॉजर ने बोला था कोई लाइफ नहीं, 98 में गुरुजी ने कहा कि तन्नू मैं नवी जिंदगी देती है. So his interjection can make the impossible possible. turn a dead man alive. I agreed wholeheartedly. As the doctor was preparing to leave, Rajendra and Audi appeared at the door. The resentment in their faces changed into sympathy as they glanced at the physician and then at my somewhat wan countenance. We were angry when you didn't turn up, as agreed at the Calcutta train. You have been sick? Yes, I could not help laughing as my friends placed the luggage in the same corner it had occupied yesterday. I quoted, there was a ship that went to Spain. When it arrived, it came back again. Master entered the room. I permitted myself a convalescent's liberty and captured his hand lovingly. Guruji, I said, from my 12th year on, I have made many unsuccessful attempts to reach the Himalayas. I am finally convinced that without your blessings, the goddess Parvati will not receive me. Without unki blessings ke bina to patta bhi nahi hota hai. To hamesha Guruji ki blessings leke jao, kahin bhi jao, kuch bhi karo, because we are not the doers, we are the mediums. He is the doer. And if we accept that with grace, then his grace upon us is immeasurable. We must accept, we must drop our ego, we must accept that it is not us doing anything, but the thoughts are ours, therefore we must work on our thoughts. The thought of doing good, being good, and living our highest life is what our aspirations ought to be. So let us be inspired again by Lata Mangeshkar's life. 7.5 decades of a wonderfully, positively impactful life that she led. And I think being a woman of substance, this is what we all need to aspire for in our own field of endeavor. So it is so beautiful. Eventually surrender. He knows best where to take us and how to be his medium of expression and an instrument of his purpose. Jai Guruji. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie, for a beautiful reading. So we'll see everybody tomorrow at 4:30 Indian time. Yes, Auntie? That suits you?
Yes, 4:30. Was it 4:30? Yes, 4:30 is perfect. Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
God
Jai
bless.
Guruji.
Have a lovely weekend.
And I might just add, we'll have Seema Kumar Auntie doing the prelude, the synopsis for this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
So
that will be wonderful. 4:15?
Yes, that will happen at 4:15 IST.
Yes. That will be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie.
Thank you.